So welcome to Mastering Invoices and Payments in QuickBooks Online. About myself, I am an accountant, an advanced certified QuickBooks Pro advisor, and a QuickBooks solution provider. I do all sorts of QuickBooks consulting, implementation, and regular standard accounting services. There's my email and my office phone number if you need to reach out to me or someone in my office directly. The table of contents of today's webinar is one, we're going to talk about customizing invoice forms. So we'll talk about the tools that are within the software to customize the forms. Then we'll talk about sending the invoices via email and reminding your customers if they haven't paid you. Then we'll talk about adding the Pay Now button in the invoice that allows your customers to pay online. So if you want to send an invoice and you want the customers to be able to click Pay Now and put their bank account number, credit card number, I'll show you how that works. It's a bit of a process, so I'll explain how that works. And then we're gonna move on to recurring invoices that automatically email your customers every month, every week, whatever frequency you have set up for those recurring invoices. Then we'll talk about recurring sales receipts, which are specifically needed if you're gonna charge your customer monthly automatically. So you don't want to key in the credit card information, or you don't want the customer to type in the credit card information each time. That would be what a recurring sales receipt is for. And then we'll do an open Q&A session, okay? So if you're using QuickBooks Online, your screen should look just like this one. And let's talk about customizing invoices. So if you were gonna set up a brand new QuickBooks Online account and you were to do nothing in terms of customization, your invoices will look pretty standard. There's one standard look for the invoices. So when you click on the Quick Create button, which is the circle with a plus sign, and then you go down to Invoices, okay, that's gonna open up a brand new invoice. That's the screen that we do to create a brand new invoice. So we're gonna first start with the standard invoice. So I'm gonna click here where it says Customize on the bottom of the screen. And then notice that this says standard. This is the standard invoice that was set up by default. So if you want to create a brand new style or a brand new template, you would click on New Style. So once we click on New Style, we click on Yes, okay? And in this one, we're going to be able to give it a name. Again, this is only QuickBooks Online, so only QuickBooks Online, okay? So we're going to give this name, we're going to call it template 1 invoice, okay? Then the first thing we're gonna do is we're gonna click on where it says dive in with template. There's 5 standard styles or template that QuickBooks gives you. One is called the Airy Classic, which is this one that you see here. The other one is called Modern, which is that one that you see there. The third one is called Fresh, which kind of gives it a gray background, a little bit like a sort of a light gray background. Then we have Bold, which gives it basically a color background. And then we have Friendly, okay? So you have to pick from those in order to figure out which is the one that you like the best. So we'll pick, let's say, Modern. So we'll start with Modern. Then we're gonna click on Add Unique Logo. So we're gonna click on the Add Logo button. And then we're gonna go look for a picture or a logo in our computer somewhere. So I'm gonna find a headshot of myself and we'll make that the logo. Okay, and then that takes usually a few seconds to process. Then I'll click on Save, and notice that QuickBooks automatically puts the logo on the top right of the screen. Now I can change the placement. So there's a couple buttons I can press here to change the placement. So I can choose where I want it. So I'm gonna put it on the left. I can also go small, medium, or large. So that's as much customization we have with the logo anyway. Then we're gonna click on Splash Some Color. We're gonna pick basically a color theme, right? So I can go through the different colors and pick the color theme that makes the most sense. Usually you wanna match that. You wanna match your logo or match one of the colors of your logo. It's really up to you what you wanna do here. I'm gonna go ahead and pick the bright red one here for now. Then we're gonna click on Get Choosy with Fonts. And then there's basically 4 font choices here. So I'll pick Helvetica and I'll pick 12 point but I have 3-point sizes and 4 font options. Then when it says, when in doubt, print it out, that's really asking you about margins. So this allows you to change your margins up. So I'll show you. I'm going to click on Preview PDF so you can see for a second what that looks like. And then this is what the PDF would look like, right? So you have basically a preview of what that looks like. If you want to increase those margins, that white space in the top, on the sides, or in the bottom, then we're going to change the margin levels in this screen right here. So when we go to edit print settings, we can change the margins. And if I wanted to give it maybe a 3-inch margin in the top, I can do that and leave that blank space in the top. And that would be useful if maybe you're using a letterhead, or if you're if for whatever reason you want to have some space in the top. Now I'm going to put this back to 1/2 inch. There's also fit pre-printed form with paste up window envelope. So what this is this will change the organization of the invoice. So you can basically fold the invoice in 3 and fit it into a window envelope. That's what that checkbox means. And then use letterhead paper. That is meant to for you to configure it for you to have about an inch or so in the letterhead in the top, and QuickBooks will not insert your contact information. So I'm going to click reset so we can get back to normal here, and then I'm going to go ahead and click on done. Okay, so that's the overall look of the invoice. Now we can also change these fields, like which fields do we want to see in the invoice, right? So I'm going to click on customize again, and then I'm going to click on edit current. Okay, actually, let me go back for a second. Let me go back, and I'm going to change the template. So I'm going to click on customize, change it to my template number 1. I have to be on that, and then I'll click on edit current because I need to be on that template in order to be able to edit. So we're going to go to content. Inside content, you're going to have 3 boxes. You have the header box in the top. We have the table box in the middle, which is often referred to as the columns. Then we have the footer box in the bottom. So based on which area you want to edit, you would just click on the one that you want to edit. So I'm going to click on the top one first, and then I'm going to add a phone number. I can change the company name. I can change the email. I can click on address and modify the address if I want to. I can hide country, right? Because it says US, I can hide the country, and I can modify the website, remove the website if I want to. So I have total flexibility there. Also, if I don't want this to say invoice and I want it to say something else, let's say final invoice or pro forma invoice, whatever I want, I can certainly do that just by changing that number up there, that name up there. Now we also have the form number. So that's the invoice number that you see right here where it says final invoice number. I can uncheck or check that if I want to show the invoice number. Typically, we always show the invoice number. And also where it says custom transaction numbers, that allows me to edit or modify the invoice number before I print it or before I mail it. So if I don't click on custom transaction numbers, QuickBooks will assign a default invoice number. If I click on this checkbox, I'll be able to change that if I want to. Now, notice that you can also change, enable or disable the shipping address, the terms, and the due date. So all these things can be added or removed if I want to, okay? So notice that all these things can be added or removed if I want to, okay? So those were those boxes there. Then we have custom fields, and I'm gonna click on manage custom fields, and that's gonna take me to the custom fields screen. Now this is only available in QuickBooks Online Advanced. This is the most expensive version of QuickBooks. It's about $150 a month. If you want to create custom fields, you would have to be on this edition. Anyway, let me go back to the invoices again and edit the template. Okay, so I'm not going to mess with the custom fields because custom fields might require an entire webinar dedicated to talking about why you would need them and how they would be useful. So that's the custom fields area. So I'm going to click on the second area in the middle, which is the table. And this is where I can show, if I want to show an account summary. So notice that I can do an account summary. So if this customer owes me for multiple invoices in the past, do I want to show the current invoice plus anything that they owe me in the past. So that's what this checkbox is for. Then we have this columns section. I can mess with the width in each of these. So if I want to make any of these columns wider, skinnier, thinner, whatever, I have some flexibility there. Of course, it's restricted to how many columns you have in there. I can also disable some of these columns. So if I don't want to see a date associated with each specific line item, I could disable that. If I want to include the description of the item as well under the item name, I can click on that. If I don't click on this box, then it will be a separate column altogether. So I have a couple of choices. I can either have a separate description column, or I can have a description under the item name. So you got total flexibility on the one that makes the most sense for you. Then I have the quantity and rate, and I can include that or exclude that if I want to. I can also change the order. So if I wanted the quantity to be the first one all the way in the top, I can just change the order of these things until we get to the order that we want. So I can move some of these columns in order and change where I want them. So I can change these columns around based on where I want them just by dragging up and down. I can also click here. It says show more activities, and this is more complex stuff. This has to do with whether you have items, if you want to group them based on everything you did it based on the day, assuming that you're using a timesheet to create an invoice. You can collapse the multiple rows if they all have the same date. You can do progress invoicing lines. That's only if you want to show that. You can show markup if you're charging for billable time and materials, and we can show, maybe if we have time today, we'll talk about that. If not, we'll save it for another webinar, and then we can include the employee's name if we're billing from a timesheet. So these activity options has to do with when I'm using time and materials to create the invoice. For now, we'll hide that, and if we have time, we'll cover that. So that's the customization of that table. Then in the footer, I have a couple of things I can enable. I can enable discount, which allows me to just add a percentage discount onto the invoice. I can add a deposit box if I want to have the invoice show, as part of the calculation, deposits that were received with the first invoice. And we have state estimate summary. That's only when you have an estimate before the invoice that's attached together. So that's what that checkbox is for. Then message to customers here at the bottom, I can say, thank you, please send payment ASAP, right? And then I can also add another additional text. I can say 30-day money back guarantee, call 1-800-Hector for service, right? So whatever it is that we want to add, we can add that in there, and we can, left adjust it or right adjust it or center adjust it. So on the footer, we have two sections where we can type information, right? The customer message and the additional footer. Then we're going to click on emails. This is a very important tab. This is for the template itself. So this is where I decide whether I want to have the default text or type my own text. So I can say something like, thank you for your business. Your product has been shipped. Please pay ASAP. Or whatever you want. So that's the default message that it's going to show up every time you create an invoice. Okay, you can also change the subject. So you can say your shipped product invoice. Okay, so something like that, right? So I can add that in there as the subject line. So whatever you want to put there, I'm going to put here from Hector Garcia. Okay, so this becomes the default message that shows up in the subject line. This becomes the default message that shows up on the body of the email. Up here in the top, I can choose to attach a PDF version of the invoice or not. If I don't attach a PDF version, then it would just be this digital HTML email version. So I recommend that you always attach the PDF just in case, because you will notice that some of your customers are going to have are going to want to save their PDFs for whatever reason. People have their own reasons that they want to do this. So obviously you want to give them a chance to do that. Then on the reminder email, you can say, you can type what you want the default text to be when you send your customer a reminder that they haven't paid. So we can say, hey, we have not received payment. Please pay ASAP or set up a payment plan to avoid collections, right? Whatever it is that you want to type. So this text has to do with reminders, which are different than emailing invoices, which we'll cover that. So we'll cover that pretty soon. Okay, so that would be it. And then we have payments. Now, this checkbox here, which is a lot of what we'll be talking about today, has to do with how great enabling payments in QuickBooks Online is. This has to do on whether or not you want the customer to see a little pay now button. So if you want your customers to see a pay now button or pay invoice button in the message of the invoice, so you see that pay invoice green button. If I disable this, you don't get that. So you have to enable it here. But before you can enable it here, you have to enable it in the account as a whole. So we'll cover what the process is to enable payments. But this is where in the template of the invoice, you can choose whether or not you want to see that pay now button as part of your default template. Okay, so then we're going to click on preview PDF so we can see what that looks like. And let's switch over so you can see that. So that's what that looks like. That's what the PDF looks like. We see the 30-day money back guarantee message at the bottom. We see the customer message. We see the description, product name, all the fields that we turned on, the custom fields, bill to address, ship to address, header information, logo, information about subtotal, all that information in there. So let me go ahead and close that and share the screen again. And that will be it. We'll go ahead and click on done. So that's as much customization as we get when we create an invoice. So let me show you what that looks like. I'm going to create a new invoice here. And I'm going to disable online payments for a second, just so you can see what the invoice looks like when you send it to your customer. So I'm going to send the customer an invoice for $1,500. I'm not going to enable payments for the time being, which is these checkboxes here, because this is the default way that QuickBooks is. QuickBooks doesn't have electronic payments by default. So I'm going to click on Save and Send. And then you see the default message that we wrote. So this has to do with the default message that we wrote. We have the default subject line that we wrote. Notice that online payments is unchecked. And then I'm going to click on Send and Close. So I'm going to switch over to my email where I send that to. So just so you can see what that invoice looks like when your customer gets that invoice. So, okay. So this is what the email looks like. Right? Here's the subject line. Here's the person, the company that sent it. Here's the to, which is, this was my customer. Then we have the name of the company up here. We have the text. We have the amount due. We have the information of the invoice in the details. All the way in the bottom, we see a PDF. So they can download the PDF and view the PDF as well. And then they have a print or save button. They don't have a pay now button because we haven't enabled payments yet. So this is the default way that QuickBooks presents invoices via email. All right. So that's customizing forms, and that covers most of the customization. Now let's talk about enabling that pay now button. So generally speaking, and I want you to pay close attention, I'm going to show you how most people enable payments into their QuickBooks account. And some of you may already have done this already. But if you are going to enable payments after this webinar, don't follow these steps. What you actually want is you want someone from the QuickBooks team that I work with to call you to enable it, because there's better rates. We have the wholesale rates as resellers, and I want to make sure that if any of you are setting up payments, you want to get a little bit of a better rate when you do that. So, but I'm going to show you, for the purposes of the webinar, how most people set up their payment. So they'll click on the gear menu and then click on account and settings. And then they'll click on where it says payments. And then normally this area would say something like payments is not enabled, click to learn more, and they would follow the prompts. Now I'm going to switch over to the PowerPoint just to show you, because I have a couple of screenshots on that. So when you normally do that, you get this button that says learn more. If you don't already have an account set up somehow, you will click on learn more, and then you will follow the prompts and put your company name, put the tax ID, your personal information, and then it goes through a credit check process. If your credit is perfect, usually it gets approved right away. If it's not, it goes through a review process. But again, I don't want you to use this feature. What I want you to do is I want you to just wait until somebody from Intuit calls you. I'll put a polling question for you to opt in for that. So once you get approved and your account is set up, you'll be able to go back into payments, and you'll be able to see on the screen that you have an account enabled. The way you know an account is enabled is because you have a merchant ID number. So having a merchant ID number basically means that you have an enabled account. And then you have a bank account associated with it. And then also you can select which is the default bank account that you want to associate with payments to that. So once the payments are deposited, what is the bank account in QuickBooks that is supposed to be matching those payments with those deposits? And then you want to create an expense account called merchant processing fees, or maybe even bank service charges, that you want to link that to. So once that's set up, then at that point, you'll be able to see that Pay Now button in the invoices, which, by the way, another great thing about it is you have total flexibility. You don't have to accept electronic payments from every single customer. You actually can choose which customers you want to pay you electronically or not. And you can check and uncheck whether you want them to pay you with a credit card or a bank transfer. And that's important and relevant because the rates are different, right? When people pay you with a credit card, they charge you one rate. When they pay you with a bank transfer, they charge you another rate. So once you have payments enabled, you will see that your customer will see a Pay Now button, and I'm going to show you how that works. So I'm going to go back into my invoices here. Okay, I'm going to pull up that invoice for $1,500 that I created recently. I'm going to click on Enable Payments with a Card or a Bank Transfer. And then I'm going to click on Save and Send one more time. So I'm basically going to send my customer that invoice again one more time. I'll click on Send and Close. And then I'm going to go back into the email here. And we'll open up that email. Let's see. Okay, so now notice that the email says review and pay. It doesn't say, let me show you, the old one said print or saved, but the new one that had the payments enabled, it says review and pay. So now you have the ability to pay electronically. So I click on review and pay, and then it's going to open up another screen, which is basically it's a specific link for every invoice has a sort of a long link that has the payment portal built in. So in here, the customer can see the invoice in this PDF format. They can print it or save as PDF straight from here. They can click on activity and they can add ask you questions that flow in through QuickBooks. Right now, the messaging is being updated, but usually the customer will be able to ask you, hey, are you sure, how long I have to pay, whatever. You can have a communication via chat on that specific invoice through your QuickBooks Online. And then they can click on Pay Now. So once they click on Pay Now, they get this screen here, and they can pick the credit card that they want to pay with. So let's say I'm going to pay $1 here, and then I'm going to click on Credit Card. And I'm going to click on New Card, and then I'm going to type up a credit card that I have here. So let me start. I'll start typing up here, and then I'll just stop sharing for a second so you don't see my credit card number. So give me 1 second. Let me finish putting the information just so you see exactly what the experience looks like. So I'm testing it with an actual credit card. The payment is entered, and this is your customer's experience, right? So that's what your customers will see. They'll enter the credit card number. It will say, look, out of the $1,500, you paid $1. Here's the balance. Here's the last 4 digits of the credit card, the transaction ID, the date. I can even click on print receipt so your customer can print. It's not an invoice, it's a receipt of the payment. So this is what the customer experience looks like for paying your invoice electronically. It's pretty much the best thing since sliced bread. It's pretty amazing. I mean, like I couldn't live without getting electronic payments. I mean, I hardly ever get checks anymore. Now, what's also really awesome about having payments enabled in QuickBooks is if the invoice is partially paid, if they go back and open that email, let me show you, because that could happen, right? Where your customer will go back and open that email again. Okay, so I'm gonna have them open the email again. Once they click on review and pay, the invoice will actually be updated. The portal will be updated, and it's gonna show you that only $1,499 it's available. So it won't inadvertently have your customer pay you twice if they're paying partially. Now, what's really neat about this also is when I go back into my invoice here, I'm going to show you automatically. This happens automatically when I'm in QuickBooks Online and my customer pays me automatically. I don't even have to blink. The payment posts into QuickBooks. So right now, this invoice shows partially paid. If I click on this one payment made and I click on that, you see that the payment is made. I can click on that and it'll jump straight into the payment. So I can actually see the payment that was made. It was automatically posted into QuickBooks. I didn't do anything accounting-wise. It adds a memo that it was paid with QuickBooks Payments. It adds a payment ID, which is basically you're able to click on transaction process, and you can see sort of the details of the payment. So you really don't have to do much at this point. It's just receive the payment and allow that payment to come in into your QuickBooks automatically. No other payment system out there. So whether you use PayPal or Square or Stripe or whatever, no other payment system out there integrates with QuickBooks the way the built-in payment system does. And the most valuable part about having it integrated is not having to remember to go back and add that payment to mark that invoice paid, because it all happens behind the scenes. Now, I'll show you one more thing. If I go into invoice here, I can also, let me pull up that same invoice. I can also receive a payment manually or process a payment manually. So let's say, for example, that my customer gives me their credit card number, or I have a credit card authorization form, or maybe they're sitting in front of my desk and I have a swipe machine, and I'll show you what the process is to get a credit card swipe machine for QuickBooks Online. You can click on receive payment, right? This is all sort of in front of the customer facing, or even behind the scenes if I happen to have a credit card number. And I can click on payment method and click on Visa. And then I can click on enter credit card details. And I can either do a swipe. So if I have a little swipe machine, I can swipe it or put the chip in and it will read it for me, and it's Bluetooth. So that little device, you can actually request it for free when you get a payments account, and I'll show you what the process for that is. So I'm going to put the credit card number here manually. So I can put a credit card number here manually, put date, expiration, put the number, put the address, and click on save. And this will process the payment and mark that payment made. Now, once the payment is made, I'm going to actually make a payment here. I'll make a payment, a manual payment. So let's say the customer paid me via this system, and I'll mark the invoice paid. So now the invoice is fully marked paid. Just double check. The invoice is fully marked paid. So I'm going to show you, if your customer happens to, by mistake, go back and read that email again that says they have an open invoice for $1,500. If they click on review and pay, it's actually not going to let them pay. It's going to say, this has already been paid. So this is where this functionality is unmatched. If you use QuickBooks and the QuickBooks Payment Companion, you get the full interface where receiving a payment inside QuickBooks updates the payment portal, and getting a payment through the payment portal, if your customer pays you when they get the email, automatically updates QuickBooks. That you cannot get with any other product, unfortunately, right? This is very unique to the QuickBooks ecosystem. Okay, so that's how you do the payments and receive the payments manually. Now, when you sign up for the payments accounts in QuickBooks, you can, with QuickBooks, you can request the basic reader. It's a Bluetooth, it's a USB reader, and you plug it into your computer, you plug it into a laptop, you basically go to the swipe button, you put the credit card in, and the credit card information gets read into the system rather than you having to type it in. You can type it in if you want to, that's possible, you can type it in, but you want to swipe the credit card because you actually get a better rate. They also have an upgradable version of that. That's the all-in-one reader that can also do the Apple Pay and those swipeless or touchless systems where you can pay with your phone and that sort of thing. So you can get either one of these. Again, once you get the payments account, you have to tell the rep that you want to get the reader for free, and they'll send it to you. So it's a $20 value. Anyway, now it's important to know and understand how much you're paying when you get paid electronically. And also to just make sure, both of these readers are wireless, okay? The first one gets charged with a USB cable. So it doesn't have to be plugged into the computer, right? It works wirelessly, and it's Bluetooth. So just to double check, it works on your iPhone, it works on an Android, and it works on your laptop. Anything that has Bluetooth, it will work, but it charges via the USB. So I wanted to just double check, make sure that I was saying the correct thing there. Now, when you get payment with a credit card, you're going to have 3 possible rates. So these are the standard rates. These are what the average person gets when they set up the payments account with QuickBooks. Again, if you set it up through the wholesale channel, and I'll tell you how to do that, all you have to do is hit yes on the polling question that I'm about to put in, or email me if for whatever reason you don't get the polling question. You get a little bit better rates, but the standard rate is if you swipe the credit card. So again, if you use the reader and swipe the credit card, you get 2.4%. So you have to pay 2.4% on the invoice value plus 25 cents per transaction. And as it compares Intuit is pretty competitive with Square and PayPal. Now, if you key in the credit card, that means that you have to key it in because it's not reading, or they give it to you over the phone, or in a credit card, in an authorization form or something like that. Then you're gonna pay a much higher rate. You're gonna pay 3.4% of the transaction amount plus 25 cents for the transaction. Now, the best way to do this is the way I described, is to do the electronic invoicing. Let your customer put the credit card information through the portal. If you let the customer put the credit card information through the portal, you pay 2.9% on the invoices plus 25 cents per transaction. But if your customer puts in their bank account information, so the routing number and the bank account number, you pay no fees. So hopefully you have more customers than not pay you with direct debit, with direct ACH payment. And you have the choice, as I mentioned earlier, let me show you on this screen, on every single invoice, you can actually enable online invoices, but disable credit cards across the board, so you pay no fees. You still have to have the credit card account set up. You have to have the QuickBooks Payments account set up, but you can disable cards and just do all electronic payments with bank transfers and pay zero fee. So that is an option. So again, if you don't sign up through QuickBooks directly and you sign up through the QuickBooks wholesale channel that I belong to, you are going to get a better rate. So instead of paying 2.9% on the online invoices, you can pay 2.75%. And that really adds up over time. If you think about it, there is a monthly fee of $16 a month to get that better rate, but it does add up over time. I would say $1,000 to $2,000 a month already starts, giving you enough impact that is worth it for you to go this route. Also, even if you don't pay the $16 a month fee, you get better key-in rates and better swipe rates. Look at the swipe rate of 1.5%. That's about the best you can find on the market. So again, if you are going to enable payments, do it through my channel, because my channel gets preferred rates. So anyway, I'm going to run a quick polling question, and this is where you would say, yep, go ahead and contact me if I want to have the Intuit team call you directly and enable the account. I'm also going to give you their phone number directly on the next slide here. So just in case you want to call them instead of getting an email or getting a phone call, I will go ahead and put that phone number up on the screen. Recurring invoices, that will be the next topic here. So we'll talk about creating the invoices and marking them recurring so you can automatically have them sent to your customers. And then we'll also talk about recurring sales receipts. They're a little bit different, but the difference is really worth discussing. Okay, so let's go into QuickBooks here. Okay, and I'm going to create a new invoice. So I'm going to go to create new invoice. Okay, I'm going to select my customer. And then let's say, for example, that for this customer, I'm going to charge a fixed fee of $250 a month. So let's say we have a contract, is $250 a month. The next invoice is going to be, let's say, April 1st, and I'm going to give them 15 days to pay. Okay, so once I have the invoice set up the way I want to, choose the right template. Once this is the invoice that I want, I'm going to put in the description and put monthly services contract expires 12/31/2019. Okay, so let's just say we're going to put that in there because that will give you some context there. Okay, so then I'm going to go ahead and click on save. So I've created the first invoice, the one that's going to be on April 1st, but then I'm going to make it recurring. So every single month through the end of the contract, the invoices get created automatically and get emailed to my customer automatically. So I'm going to click on the make recurring button in the bottom of the screen. So right in the bottom black line, you see that says print or preview, make recurring. I'll click on that. And that's basically going to open up additional information here. So on the additional information, I have a couple of recurring types. So I can do scheduled, or I can do reminder, or I can do unscheduled. So those are the three options that we have here. So scheduled, reminder, and unscheduled. And I'm going to explain what each of these mean. Okay. So unscheduled means that the template is set up and I can recall it on demand whenever I need to. So unscheduled means I'm going to save it into the memory and I can always go to the list of recurring transactions and pull each of these on demand. Then reminder, all it does is it reminds me on the software. It pulls up on the reminders window and it says, hey, you should invoice this customer. And then my favorite, which is scheduled, which means you don't really have to do anything. I can say, look, 3 days before the invoice is due, create the invoice automatically. Do it monthly. Do it the first day of the month, right? Every 1 month. Start date, I want to start this May 1st. end it. I'm going to end it by 12/31/2019. So I'm creating basically a system where QuickBooks will create these invoices automatically. I'm going to uncheck print later because I'm never really going to print them. And then I'm going to click on automatically send emails. I can also enable or disable payments if I want to. And then I'll click on save template. So automatically 3 days before the May 1st, this invoice is going to be created in QuickBooks Online, and it's going to be emailed to your customer automatically. So once it's emailed to your customer, then at that point, they can send you a check or pay you electronically if you have payments set up. Now, a little bit different is recurring sales receipts. So we create recurring sales receipts, which are similar to invoices, because we want the system to automatically charge the customer every single month. So the way I would do that is, let's say that I have an agreement with my customer that every single month I'm going to do a service for $25 a month, and we're going to make this recurring. And I'm going to say, look, every month starting, let's just do May 1st again. And let's say we'll just do May 1st here. So let's say this just one basically. So every month I'm choosing to expire this one immediately, but you can expire it whenever. I can click on automatically send emails. And then down here, I can click on payment method and click Visa. And then I can click enter credit card details, and I can type in the credit card information. So I'm typing in the credit card information now. Okay, I just disabled the screen share for a second so I can enter it. Because there's no test system for this. So I have to use a live system. Okay. And then I click on save. And then once it's saved, you will notice that it will say Visa and then the last 4 digits, and it will have the checkbox that says process credit card. What a sales receipt or a recurring sales receipt allows me to do is, if I click on save template and keep this one scheduled every single month until the expiration date that I set, QuickBooks is automatically going to charge the credit card. It's not going to send the customer an invoice. It's going to send them a receipt, right? And it's going to charge the credit card. You're going to get paid. QuickBooks is going to be updated that you received that payment, and your customer is going to get an email that what I'm saying is, with the sales receipt, your customers will get an email automatically that the credit card was charged. You can either choose Visa and enter your credit card information so the credit card gets charged automatically every month. And this is not an invoice. This is not where your customer is going to click on pay now. This is automatically going to charge your customer. Or you can choose check. And then once you click on check, you click on enter bank info, and then you put all the customer's information in here. Now, there is a authorization form that they give you by default. So this is QuickBooks gives you a template. It's a PDF template. You can print this and you can use this to have your customer fill it out and sign it and give you their information. So you can have this on file as proof that the customer authorized you to charge them automatically. So with a sales receipt, you can either do check or Visa, MasterCard, whatever it happens to be. So you can set up your automatic payments. And that's the fundamental difference between an invoice and a sales receipt with recurring, right? With, one of them will charge automatically. The other one will just send your customer the information for them to pay you, or the invoice for them to pay you. And Aaron says, my state requires specific terms for residential work. I need a way to create multiple statement templates with different terms and conditions on each. So far, I've only found this way to do with a customer message. But okay, so what Aaron, what you're referring to is where can you add specific information and conditions to the forms? Unfortunately, with QuickBooks, you don't have that many places to to add information. So let me pull up an estimate just so we can talk about that. So Aaron's question is, I want to do a template in which I can add terms and conditions to the template. So that may not be possible because you have very limited space here in which you can add text. The only areas that you can add text in here are going to be in here in the customer message and the additional footer. But there is a sort of a backdoor way of doing this, which is I can attach a document to the estimate. Let me show you. I can attach a document to the estimate. So I basically clicked and dragged a PDF file I had in my computer, and I'm attaching it to the estimate itself, okay? And then there's a little checkbox that says attach to email. So if you wanted to add a PDF page that had conditions or a contract or had some additional text, all you have to do is drag and drop it into your estimate, into your invoice, attach it, and then click on attach to email. So then let's say I were to email my customer an estimate. So let me do this estimate here for $5,000. As long as I have this checkbox here to attach email, and I click on save and send, and I'll click on send and close. That should show on my email anytime soon. We'll go back to that. Trust me, it's there and it will work. So that's what it was, Aaron. So hopefully that answers your question. You add an attachment and click on attach email. That's really the best you can do in terms of adding additional information to your estimates or invoices. Okay, all right. So we have one more thing to cover here. And let's see, which is with the recurring, which is managing recurring transactions. So after you create those recurring transactions, go back into QuickBooks here, you can view all your recurring transactions by clicking on the gear menu and then clicking on recurring transactions. And then any recurring transaction that you have created, you can see them here. You can see when the next date is. You can see how often they're supposed to be coming in. You can see if they're scheduled or unscheduled. Notice that all the ones that are unscheduled, I can use them. See, so the unscheduled ones are just there to be in a repository, in a list of recurrent transactions for us to pull them in the future. But this one that is scheduled doesn't have the use button because that's scheduled. That will happen automatically. And if I want to edit that or change that, then I would click on edit, and then I can change that customized invoice. Okay. All right. So the last thing I wanted to cover is, and this was kind of just a bonus material just in case we had time. So it looks like we did have time. It's how to add billable time and costs into an invoice. So let's say, for example, that you charge by the hour and you want to add that time into an invoice. So what you do is you create a timesheet. So I'm going to create a timesheet. I'm going to pick one of my employees here. I'll pick this customer, and let's say that I spend 4 hours and 8 hours on this customer. So this employee spent 4 hours on Sunday, 8 hours on Monday working on this customer, and we want to charge them $35 an hour. Okay, so notice that the billable says $420. So that means that when I create an invoice for this customer, Carlos, in the future, and automatically the $420 should show up into the invoice. So I'm going to click on save and close. And I'll show you one more thing. Let's say, for example, I went to FedEx. So let's say I used my credit card and I went to FedEx, and I had to ship my customer some documents. So I'll put here shipping, whatever happens to be. Let's do here postage. Okay. So this was overnight docs to customer, right? So let's say, for example, I'm supposed to get paid back this money, and this was $21.75. So as long as I select the customer here in the customer section, and you need QuickBooks Online Plus to do this, by the way. So as long as I can do that, and then click on save and close, next time I create an invoice for that customer. So I'm going to go create an invoice, and I'll select them here from the drop-down menu. Notice on the right hand of the screen, you see that right hand, that little bar that shows up. This allows me to add that billable time. So I can add that billable time. And I can also add billable expenses. So I can add billable time, I can add billable expenses, all to this customer straight from here. And then I can click on save and close, save and send, email it, do everything else that we talked about during the presentation. Okay. Now, all your templates are going to be here in the gear menu and custom form styles. So when I click on that, this is where I can see all my different templates. So if you want to make a template default, all you have to do is select the template that you want to make default, click on the little triangle button next to the edit button and click on make default. And then now my template invoice is going to be my default that shows up every single time. And I can even delete the old ones. Now the default one called standard, that one cannot be deleted because you always have to have one in there, but you can delete them or rename them if you want to. Okay. And you can also create your new styles and your new templates straight from here. Okay. All right. So that's it for the presentation. Let me just make sure that we didn't miss anything else. Let me give you some additional resources. So the next webinar is going to be on payroll. What we're planning to do it is on payroll. Similar to this, we'll cover how to add payroll into QuickBooks. So tell me if that makes sense for you, if that's something that you would attend, a webinar similar to this on adding payroll. And I'm going to show you one more screen that has links to free resources, training resources, and videos you can watch about QuickBooks Online. So just after this poll, I'm going to go ahead and show you that slide. So please answer the polling question. Would you be interested on, or do you have payroll now? So do you have payroll now? Okay. Perfect. I'll go ahead and end that polling question. So it looks like a few of you are going to set up payroll soon. So that may be useful for you. So I'll end that polling question and show you this slide here. So this slide has 3 links that I recommend you look at. One is you want to look at the free QuickBooks Online course I put together. It's just a collection of my YouTube videos organized into some sort of organized fashion so you can follow them and learn QuickBooks Online in depth. There's no charge, there's no upsell. My QuickBooks Online course is free. You can also, in YouTube, there's just so many resources to specifically for QuickBooks Online. All you have to do is search QuickBooks Online tutorial, and you see tons of resources there. And then I have an advanced webinar series that's also going to be free, and there's the link for that. So I'm gonna put a link in the chat box here. So look at the chat box right about now. That chat box, that link allows you to download the slides. So if you want to download the slides, it's on the chat box. Okay, I'm also going to email you the slides as well. That way we can have those in the email. So if you can't see it on the chat box, I will go ahead and email that to you as well, so you can have those slides. Okay, because those links are all really valuable. And then if you want to contact me directly, contact my office for this or any other needs. There's my email, there's my phone number, and that's it. I'm looking at we should be done, but I'm looking at the Q&A section to see if there's any questions I didn't answer. So Paul is asking, you have an issue with the margins that are too wide for progress invoice. Can those be adjusted? Yeah. So I showed you how to adjust your margins earlier. So once I record this video, I'll email you the recording as well. You can change the margins on an invoice. That's totally doable. Yeah. So I had showed you that earlier when we went into the margin section. Okay, I don't think I have any more questions pending. So that being said, hope you enjoyed the webinar. We ended right on time, and have a wonderful day.